She sent everything back, not in a single dramatic gesture, not in one moment designed to make a statement or communicate something with maximum impact. It happened gradually, quietly. Over the course of several days, things began to disappear from the spaces they had occupied. Things I had given her over the years that had always seemed so permanent in their places that I had stopped noticing them as gifts and had simply started thinking of them as part of how the world looked. A piece of jewelry that had caught the light in a particular way every morning. Something I had brought back from a trip because it had reminded me of her the moment I saw it and I had not been able to leave it behind. Things chosen carefully and given in moments where the giving had meant something specific between us. One by one, they returned, without notes, without explanation, without any accompanying communication that would have given me something to respond to. Just the things themselves, arriving back into my possession with a silence that was louder than anything she could have said. My name is Sheikh Hamdan. And when the last box arrived and I looked through everything she had sent back, I realized immediately what was missing. And the knowing of why it was missing undid me in a way that nothing else had. There's a particular kind of communication that exists between two people who have known each other long enough and deeply enough that words become optional for the things that matter most. She and I had developed that over years, the ability to say significant things without saying them directly, to understand what was meant beneath what was spoken, to read the real message inside the surface one. It was one of the things about her that I had always admired and privately relied on. The way she understood me without requiring me to spell everything out. The way I could be in a room with her and feel genuinely known without having performed any particular version of myself for her benefit. And in sending everything back without a single word of explanation, she was using that same language one final time. She was trusting me to understand, and I did. Completely. And I almost wished I didn't. The gifts I give carry intention in them. I am not someone who selects things carelessly or gives out of obligation or routine. When I find something for someone I care about, it is because a genuine and specific connection happened between that object and my thought of them. A moment of recognition, of this is hers. And over the years of our relationship, the things I had given her were a kind of archive, a physical record of specific moments in which she had been present in my mind with enough particularity that something external had become a representation of her. She would have known that. She understood how I chose things, and in sending them all back, she was returning something more than objects. She was returning the moments they represented, giving back the record, closing the archive, saying clearly and without words that she no longer wanted to be the keeper of those moments, because keeping them required her to remain connected to something she had decided to put down. But she kept one thing, something I had given her early, before the weight of everything that came later had accumulated into what it eventually became, something small enough that it could have been overlooked in the returning of everything else. Small enough that its absence from the return collection might have been accidental if I had not known her as well as I did. It was not accidental. Nothing she did was ever accidental in that particular way. She kept it because of what it represented, and she knew that I would know exactly what that was. The moment I noticed it was missing from everything else, she kept the one thing that came from before, from the version of us that existed before complexity arrived, and before distance accumulated, and before I became someone who consistently gave her less than she deserved. She kept the thing that belonged to who we had been when what we had was still simple enough to hold without it costing her anything to hold it. That is what undid me, not the returning of everything else. The returning was painful, but it was also, in its own way, understandable. Closure requires releasing things, I understood that. What I could not absorb cleanly was the keeping of the one thing, because it told me something I had suspected but had not wanted to confirm, that she was not leaving without love. She was leaving while loving, she was walking away from something she still held genuinely inside her, because staying had become more painful than going, and she was keeping the one small thing from the beginning as the only piece she allowed herself to take, not as sentiment exactly, more as evidence, private evidence that what had existed between us at the start had been real, that she had not imagined it, that before everything complicated it, there had been something worth keeping, even if only in that one small form. I have not moved the things she returned. They sit where I placed them when they arrived back. and I have not reorganized them or put them away or tried to reintegrate them into the ordinary spaces of my life. Because doing any of those things would require me to treat them as simply mine again, and they do not feel simply mine. They feel like the record of something that was almost something else. Almost enough. Almost held correctly. Almost protected in the way it deserved to be protected. And that almost is the heaviest thing in any of those spaces. Not the objects themselves. The word sitting inside all of them, the distance between what was and what could have been if I had understood sooner what I only understand now. She returned everything except one thing, and in that one kept thing she said more than any explanation ever could have. She said that the beginning was worth keeping, and that everything that followed was not. And I knew exactly why, because I had been there for both, and the difference between them was me.